And we are back with the fourth segment, of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fourth segment, we are going to talk about the NBA games that took place yesterday. There were a lot of blowouts in these ones, a lot of surprising upsets. Well, not really. I think there were some surprising upsets going into yesterday's game, and the biggest surprise, at least in my opinion, was the Brooklyn Nets losing to the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, the Nets, they ended up losing by a staggering 67 to 126. Like, that is almost a 60-point deficit that the Nets were suffering from, and it was absolutely disgusting. And this was a team that has said before that they aren't really going to be putting their best lineup out there, and that definitely seems to be the case with this lineup, because good lord, losing by 60 is inexcusable at any level. It does not matter. That is absolutely disgusting. Now, James Harden had 21 points and 11 assists. Kawhi had 23 points, and Norman Powell had 18 points. This was a generational beatdown. Like, there's no other way to really put it other than, like, it really didn't seem like the Nets were trying to win in this game. Like, it was embarrassing. Now, the next matchup that we are going to talk about is the Lakers being able to beat the Heat. Now the Lakers are 21-17, and they stand in the 6th spot of the entire Western Conference. LeBron had 22 points, 9 assists, 2 steals, because of course he did. Anthony Davis had 22 and 11, and Roy Hachimura had 23. Austin Reeves had 14 points and 14 assists in that game as well. And obviously, the Lakers, they were coming off of a really bad stretch of losing games. Now, beating the Heat with Tyler Hero dropping 34 points is obviously a really good booster for their morale. Bam Adebayo didn't really play well. There was still no Jimmy Butler, as we're still expecting him to get traded. He has not been traded yet. But another game that ended up happening was the Knicks going up against the 76ers. The Knicks, they played the 76ers in overtime, where the Knicks ended up winning in the end. Now, there was Tyrese Maxey and there was Paul George, but Tyrese ended the game with 33 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Paul George had 26 points and 6 assists, along with 3 steals. And Kelly Oubre Jr. had 16 points and 10 rebounds. Now, obviously, this wasn't enough to go up against Mikal Bridges and his 23 points, Jalen Brunson and his 38 points, as well as Josh Hart and his 10 points, 12 assists, and 17 rebounds. Again, great game coming in from Josh Hart, getting a triple-double, and also being able to get 4 steals along with that as well. And, I mean, obviously, 38 points from Jalen Brunson is 38 points. Now, the Pelicans, they ended up beating the Dallas Mavericks to get their 10th win in the season. The Mavericks, they did not have Kyrie. They did not have Luka Doncic. They did have just Klay Thompson, but Klay Thompson didn't do anything. Klay ended 5 for 12 from the field with only 12 points, was 2 of 9 from 3, and Daniel Gafford was the leading scorer for the Mavericks, ended up shooting 12 for 13 with 27 points. But again, the Pelicans, they ended up winning this game. CJ McCollum only had 11 points, but Trey Murphy III had 24 points and 10 rebounds. And DeJounte Murray ended the game with 30 points, 7 assists, and 7 rebounds. And again, they only won by 3 points. The final score was 119 to 116, but still an embarrassing way to go out if you are the Dallas Mavericks. Now, the Warriors, they end up evening out their record at 20-20, and they ended up beating the Timberwolves 116 to 115. Steph Curry had 31 in this game. There was also Trace Jackson Davis, who had 15 rebounds. Andrew Wiggins ended with 24 points, and coming off the bench, Buddy Hield had 18 points. It was, again, just a 1-point win. They won 116 to 115 against the Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards had 28. DiVincenzo also had 28, but it still wasn't enough to go up against the Golden State Warriors. And Julius Randle only had 17. He only played 27 minutes, however. And, I mean, it's not like he really shot the ball that well. He went 8 for 18, which is actually very terrible, considering how he only had 17 points. Now, the Celtics, they ended up playing against the Raptors. Excuse me. The Raptors, they ended up winning 110-97. And whenever the Celtics lose, it's always very surprising. But more often than not, it's usually because Jason Tatum does not play good enough. Jason Tatum ended with only 16 points, 5 for 15 from the field, and he did get 10 rebounds and 7 assists. But again, that is a little bit lackluster on the points production coming in from Tatum. Porzingis ended with 18 points and 8 rebounds. Jaylen Brown had 10 points and 7 rebounds, also a little bit lackluster. Derek White only ended with 6 points, which again is a little bit, actually not even a little bit, way less than mediocre for Derek White and the expectations that I have for him. Him going 1 for 7 was definitely not on my parlay pool whatsoever. That was absolutely disgusting. And again, this is sort of like, I know it's, I said that the Celtics losing is always surprising, but this is also just, a big reason why they end up losing is because, and I haven't really talked about this much, was that this is a team that relies heavy on the three-point shot. I mean, of the 91 shot attempts that they took, 46 of them were three-pointers. So this is a team that could easily win a lot of playoff games by taking all of these threes, or they could lose a lot of playoff games by taking all of these threes. It's one or the other with these kinds of teams. Now, the Memphis Grizzlies, they ended up beating the San Antonio Spurs. They won 129-115, and Victor Wembanyama got dunked on twice, I believe, once by Zach Edey, and then another after the whistle sounded by Ja Morant. Ja ended with 21 points and 12 rebounds. Not 12 rebounds, 12 assists. And if you really want to count that posterizing dunk, he ended with 23 points. So, Victor Wembanyama had 13 and 12 in this one. Also recorded 8 blocks, which is very impressive. Chris Paul only had 8 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists. Also had 5 personal fouls. Stephon Castle ended with 26 points, and Keldon Johnson ended with 17 points. Now, on the Grizzlies side, there was also Desmond Bane, who had 21, Jaren Jackson Jr., who had 19, and off the bench, Santi Aldama had 20 points and 10 rebounds. So, just overall, very good performance coming in from the Grizzlies and that team. The Hawks, they ended up beating the Chicago Bulls, despite Nikola Vucevic dropping 14 points and 16 rebounds. Zach LaVine ended with 15. Kobe White ended with 16. And on the Hawks side, there was no Trae Young in this one, but still no problem. Keaton Wallace ended the game with 27 points. Dyson Daniels ended the game with 18 points. Let's see. Clint Capella had 11 points and 10 rebounds. And Okongwu had 14. And Daquan Plowden had 19. Now, the next game on this list is the Magic going up against the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, surprisingly, the Bucks, they actually were able to beat the Orlando Magic again, even, despite the fact that the Magic have Paolo Banchero. Paolo had 22 points, Cole Anthony had 11, and Wendell Carter Jr. had 12. But on Milwaukee's side, Damian Lillard had 30, Giannis had 26 and 11, and Brook Lopez had 13. And off the bench, Bobby Portis and Chris Middleton both ended with 14 points. So, great performance coming in from Milwaukee in there. And in another surprising performance, the Houston Rockets ended up beating the Denver Nuggets. Jalen Green had 34 points, Sengun had 29 and 8. Fred VanVleet had 16 points, and off the bench, Cam Whitmore had 16 as well. Now, Jamal Murray had 22. Russell Westbrook had 17. There was no Nikola Jokic, so that is the reason why they ended up losing. And finally, the Hornets, they ended up playing against the Jazz, and the Hornets ended up winning 117 to 112. LaMelo Ball had 27, 9, and 6. Miles Bridges had 25 and 10. And Mark Williams had 31 and 13. Brandon Miller had 20 points. And on the Jazz side, the only player who had 20 was Keontae George, who had 26, 6, and 2. So that's all that I have for this fourth segment. So now we're going to go into the fifth segment where I talk about Quinn Ewers and all of the money in NIL that he ended up passing up just so he could enter this draft. So I will be right back after this short break.